Toronto Raptors lose to the Charlotte Hornets 118-111 in overtime, ending their 9-game winning streak. And now that was our first loss against an Eastern Conference team away from home. What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Raptors Rundown. And unfortunately, it is the first one in a while that is happening after a loss. Honestly, I forgot how to record these. It's been that long. It was a fun ride, but honestly, the way we've been playing recently, we were due a loss. And the reason I say that is because, honestly, in the past couple of games, we have really been heavily reliant on playing some of these trash teams, and that being the reason why we've been able to pull it out of the fire at the end of these games, why we've been able to play so well in the clutch, because some of these teams just aren't very good. This time, it was against a young, hungry Charlotte Hornets team who had a couple of players who were going off and who had a couple of players that were just playing with a lot more energy than us, especially down the stretch. It didn't start off that way, though. In fact, to start off the game, we were flying out of the gate. Scotty Barnes had a lot of energy. We were fighting defensively. We were getting good looks. And we were, most importantly, limiting turnovers. Keep that in mind. This lasted for one quarter and one quarter only, because at the end of the quarter, we were up 13, and then we proceed to lose the next quarter by about 7 points. What happened in that second quarter? More turnovers like the first game. The bench unit got heavily outplayed, and they got heavily outplayed all night long. We'll talk about that later. And most importantly, Moussa Diabate was absolutely dominating down low, getting offensive rebounds, making extra plays, giving the Hornets extra possessions, rolling to the bucket effectively. He was really, really effective tonight. The only bench players I'm going to give credit to tonight, Colin Murray-Boyles, who was hustling with his offensive rebounding, and Sandro Mamukelashvili, who is just currently our only reliable, consistent scoring option off of the bench. While we're talking about it, the bench has been horrible. Ochai Agbaji, he's been terrible all season long shooting the ball. Grady Dick has been really bad as of late and continued his poor play tonight. And Jamal Shead, who's actually been shooting really well from three this season, he struggled tonight as well, and he really did not look comfortable out there offensively. It was a really bad night from our bench. Ochai Agbaji, Jamal Shead, and Grady Dick, those three players, they were combined 4 for 17 from the field and 2 for 10 from 3. And as a team where the bench has been the one pulling us out of the fire sometimes, that is not going to bode well for us when it's now, surprisingly, our starters who are trying to save us. In the first 3 quarters, Emmanuel Quickley, Brandon Ingram, and Scotty Barnes looked to be carrying us to a victory as they should against inferior competition. What's frustrating about this game is that I was hoping, to come out here, win or lose, and complain about the refs, because the refs were absolutely terrible tonight for 3 quarters. In fact, we had to use both of our challenges on 2 very obvious calls that went against us. And tonight, all 4 challenges made by both teams, they were all successful. That tells you a little bit of the story about how the refs were tonight. But like I said, they were only bad for 3 quarters. 3 quarters in which we won. The 1 quarter and the 1 period of overtime where they were actually good, the Toronto Raptors got dominated. So I really can't complain about the refs tonight for this loss. In the 4th quarter, there was a period where it felt like we were stuck at the number 96, and I want you to remember this. We were stuck at 96 for a good 4 minutes. And keep in mind, this was with about I'd say 5 or 6 minutes left in the 4th quarter. We ended up ending that 4th quarter with 104 points. Keep in mind, we were at 96 for about 4 minutes, and we ended with 104 points. So in that entire span, we were able to score, 8 points? For a team that's been operating so well in the clutch, it's absolutely shocking. And I give a lot of credit to the Charlotte Hornets. They ended up having a 12-0 run to tie the game, and then eventually, we actually went up 3 at one point. Scotty Barnes hit 2 massive free throws for us, and then they go down the court, they go sideline out of bounds, pass it to Colin Knipple, he's open in the corner, shoots the 3, ties the game. It was way too easy of a look for Colin Knipple. To Brandon Ingram, he really, at least put your hands on, man. He has to contest that in that scenario. We still got the last shot, though, about 7 or 8 seconds left. We go to Brandon Ingram like we did against Indiana. This time, they delay their double team a lot more than they did in that first game where they did a really early double team. Brandon Ingram was forced to take a contested 2. It goes back rim, and we're going to overtime. Lots of credit to Charles Lee, because he made a couple of crucial moves that I believe won the game. He took off LaMelo Ball, their star player, for Colin Sexton. He took off Brandon Miller for Sion James, and he took off Ryan Kalkbrenner for Moussa Diabate. To me, those 3 substitutions single-handedly won them the game. We already spoke about Moussa Diabate. See on James, we know what he brings defensively. Colin Sexton is an absolute bulldog, and when he is on fire shooting the ball, when he's on fire scoring the ball, he's a really hard guy to stop, especially for a guy like Emmanuel Quickley, who's really struggled defensively this season. And then when you have Miles Bridges and Colin Kneppel shooting the way that they are, their scoring ability being the way it was today, it is a really good lineup that Charles Lee had put out there. Credit to him. But the Toronto Raptors only had 17 points in the fourth, but nonetheless, we have a chance to win it in overtime. Darko Rajakovic decides, instead of taking off Emmanuel Quickley, who's been struggling defensively, who's been struggling to stop them, he takes off Jacoby Walter, our only other positive guard defender. For a good guard defender in Jamal Shed, but I'm a little confused as to why we didn't take off Emmanuel Quickley, who was struggling scoring the ball at that point, for Jamal Shed, and then you go with a defensive guard pairing of Jamal Shed and Jacoby Walter. In overtime, it was continued. Brandon Ingram ended up missing his last 9 shots. The only reason he was inefficient tonight was because he missed his last 9 shots. At one point, he was 10 for 17. He ended the game 10 for 26, and it continued into overtime. He was forcing a lot of mid-ranges, missing way too many shots, and it really did not help us when our closers missing everything. In overtime, Charlotte got their first lead of the night, and they didn't look back. We couldn't get a stop in overtime. They kept switching Emmanuel Quickley onto Miles Bridges from the mid-screen and roll, and they ran that play over and over again. Miles Bridges kept getting these very easy looks, just shooting over the smaller Emmanuel Quickley. It's exactly why I would have taken off Quickley for Jamal Shed, who could much rather handle that assignment on Miles Bridges. Also, late in the game, I would have liked to see more minutes for Sandro, because he was scoring. He was our only consistent scoring off of the bench, and I did not see him ever since he had his own little run during that game. We forced way too many Ingram shots, especially when Scotty Barnes was playing so well. He ended the game, we wasted another 30 piece from Scotty Barnes. He ended the game with 30 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 steals, and a block. All around game from Scotty Barnes, and I barely saw him touch the ball down the stretch. We actually had a chance to get back in the game with about 40 seconds left. We finally get a stop, or was it a steal? I don't remember. But in transition, Emmanuel Quickley decides to take on a 4-on-1, does a spin dribble and loses the ball, turn over to Moussa Diabate. We for some reason let him pass it before fouling, and he passes it off. It's a free throw game from then on, and it was over at that point, and the Raptors winning streak comes to an end. A lot of good notes from this game, though. A lot of good takeaways. Mainly the one of this game really showed why we need RJ Barrett, and not just RJ Barrett, quite literally any sort of other scoring option. RJ Barrett's cutting ability was missed. There wasn't anyone cutting as effectively as him. His transition game was missed. It's a team that's one of the top in the league at transition points. We only had 13 fast break points tonight. That can't run. And overall, his game just opens up the floor so much more for Brandon Ingram, Scotty Barnes, and Emmanuel Quickley. And especially down the stretch, when you're struggling for offense, a lot of our go-to shots is just handing the ball to RJ Barrett and making him go downhill, drawing contact, and either getting to the line or getting a bucket for us. Another big talking point is our poor game from the bench. As of late, it really has not looked as good as it was early on in the season. We were talking bench mob early, and now they've really started to struggle. Our bench was outscored 24-34. And if you're only counting Colin Sexton and Moussa Diabate, they were still outscored 24-25. The stat of the night for me is that turnovers once again killed us. They killed us in the first game and tonight as well. The Charlotte Hornets having 19 points off of our 16 turnovers. However, the positive soul in me wants to say this. I am glad in a way that the Toronto Raptors were able to learn this lesson and able to take this loss on the chin and understand that it has not been perfect basketball whatsoever. In fact, at times you could say we've been lucky to come out of some of these games down the stretch with a win. I would say the Brooklyn game and the Indiana Pacers game were 2 perfect examples of games where we barely escaped while we were trying to get in our own way. And today we really did get in our own way. Not scoring for a 5-minute stretch in the fourth, being such a good clutch team in this stretch, that's not going to run. All these turnovers, it screwed us over. And you are not going to beat the elite teams in the East playing this way. Luckily for them, and I always say this is the good part about losing the first night of a back-to-back, you get another chance right away. This time it's against a much tougher team in the New York Knicks, a rested New York Knicks team, and it is going to be a tough job for us. I foresee that we don't have RJ Barrett once again for this game against the Knicks, so we will need another reliable scoring option, that fourth one, or we will need Brandon Ingram to be how he was against the Cleveland Cavaliers, which isn't as reliable as it seems. I do think he's going to be looking for revenge. I do think he's going to be looking to be a lot more efficient in this game, and hopefully we can come out of here with a win. To me, I'm looking at our defense on Jalen Brunson, who's been torching the league as of late. Who are we going to put on Jalen Brunson? I believe Darko Rajakovic is most likely going to go with Jacoby Walter in the starting lineup once again, who has not been bad at all recently. Defensively, he's been incredibly consistent, and I do think he will be able to take on that challenge of Jalen Brunson. It's just whether or not it'll work. Sometimes, it's hard to guard some of the best players in the league. The New York Knicks are another team in the league that like to run out in transition. They like to have a high pace in the game, so I want to see us be able to maintain that throughout the game and be able to outrun them, especially because we're on the second night of a back-to-back, and it's incredibly demoralizing for a team to be getting outworked by a team that's coming off the second night of a back-to-back. And that's what happened to the Toronto Raptors tonight against the Hornets, who had just beaten a team the night before. A player that I really want to see bounce back, and we're desperately going to need him to bounce back, is Grady Dick, because he has not been shooting the ball well at all as of late. So I want to see him at least have another efficient game from three. Another talking point that I forgot to mention, the Toronto Raptors finally have their opponent figured out for the NBA Cup quarters, and it is also the New York Knicks. We will do a little bit of a preview. Hopefully, I want to record a podcast episode with Madi soon where we talk a little bit about the NBA. We're 1 month into the season, so I think this is a good time to talk about it. Thank you guys so much for watching. That's the end of the episode. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, do all that stuff. You know what the deal is. And I will see you guys in the next episode of the Raptors Rundown.